Guys, Friday has just started. I know that you can't wait for the weekend parties, but we still have a couple of hours to go. So please say some energy for our panel today about the DAOs. I think this is definitely a very shivering and chilly concept, you know, just to, let's say, at this kind of, at this noon. But we really want to make this a fun and engaging panel for everyone, especially those who are new to DAOs. And maybe before we start the panel, can I have a show of hands of those who are fairly familiar with DAO? Do you know what it is? Okay. All right, 5 people, 6, someone who is very shy in the back, okay. All right, anyone here who has set up a DAO? Anyone? Anyone? What is your DAO, sir? Like an investment DAO? Okay, so pre-investment DAO.
Yeah, pre-investment DAO, yeah.
Okay, all right. Someone in the back who is doing a DAO as well? Did I miss anyone? Okay. What are you doing, sir? A DAO for?
Our own company, and basically we set up the ESOP program for all our employees, yeah.
Okay, so, sorry, is it like a service DAO or what exactly is it?
ESOP, so basically the stock option feature for the internal employees, right?
Okay, okay, got it. So I think we have some practitioners in the house. We have some newbies, some enthusiasts about DAO. So hopefully we're gonna have a very interesting panel today. And I have a very stellar panel with me. So Alex from Cryptomeria Capital and also HARPREET from Blocklime. So they're from, from all over the world. My name is Nicole, I'm the moderator. So I'm running an APAC DAO. Actually, it's not a full DAO, but we are doing this as a community-based initiative for Web3 builders in APAC. And we're also planning to go on full DAO later. So I think we have, let's say 40 minutes for the panel. So I also want to kickstart the panel today, maybe with the first question with the panelists. So what do you think about the topic of the panel today? So it says DAOs, a new breed of internet native organizations. So what do you think about it? Is it for new organizations? Is it for existing organizations? So what exactly are we looking at here in terms of the growth perspective for DAO? Maybe Alex, do you want to take first?
Sure. So first of all, I'm really happy to see all of you here. I believe we'll have a great discussion. I find this question is a really complicated and simple on the other hand. Because if we have a bird view and go back for last summer, we would see a number of different new DAOs, a lot of projects, a lot of newcomers. All of them, they wanted to include any DAO mechanics and the ideas and the products and create, let's say, as much DAOs as they can. But at the same time, for now, we understand all of them, founders, communities, ambassadors, they realized a DAO is not a simple thing. It's really, really sophisticated. Why? First of all, because you need full-time contributors. It's about human behaviors. It's about contribution, again. It's about communications, people management, sometimes project management. So DAO is not just about governance. Because for now, a lot of DAOs, let's say key players, successful DAO players, they have around 20 or 30 contributors. And it's a huge success for them. So DAO is not just about governance. It's definitely not about governance token only. DAO is about a set of principles how people can collaborate and communicate and work together in the centralized Web3 space. So in this way, back to your question, I do believe DAOs could be implemented in any organization, an existing one or a new one, but it depends on principles in what way they could be implemented?
I mean, just to put out towards the question, so the first time when I heard about DAOs, I was like, like the first DAOs pitch I heard, I was like, is this a scam, right? So the first time when I heard it, I was like, okay, maybe this thing is not going to work. Like couldn't actually grasp the idea of DAOs and leaderless societies and all of those. But when I understand the mechanics, I got curious, I got interested. But when I understand the principles and values, I fall in love with it. So I see it, yes, as a new dawn, as a new way of actually stretching up structures and companies, but most, like the best value proposition for a DAO today is it's very collaborative, it is very open, it allows people to, have, trust and believe in such vision, ideas, organizations, groups, where people who do not even know who's the other party, on the other hand, is willing to come together to achieve a vision together. I think that values, that principles, that concepts was beautiful, where we actually can have communities, organizations with various different backgrounds, where we don't even know who is it at the back, but the system works, the idea works, the vision works, the community thrives to get together, build together, and grow, right? So when I looked into those concepts and I see them in, in motion, working out there, I kind of felt that, okay, what if I can pick the same concept up, apply in many different other areas? Let's say, what about, can we do maybe like DAO cooperatives? Can we do DAO company structures? Can we do DAO for art? Can we do DAO for voting, gaming? And it kind of just keep on, the idea keep on just exploding, just like a big bang in a way, where you can actually apply these concepts, modify them, grow them further, but sticking true to its principles and values. So when you look into DAO, is it something that I feel it's going to be growing and exponentially out of here today? I think yes, there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of opportunities, and especially I think today where we are, we already have some level of functional DAOs and communities that are already working out there, but there's a lot of development, R&D, tooling needed in the space for us to realize a lot more visions and a lot more types of DAOs out there.
Okay, so I think we have kind of cracked some of the basics or the fundamentals of DAO. So for those who are new to DAO, it stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. And I believe that the concept, as HARPREET mentioned, it dates back for so long, even before the inception of blockchain. But the reason why we are here today to have a dedicated panel for DAO is that because, of course, blockchain kind of elevates, the community values and also some of the tech stacks that we can use for DAO. So I think Alex mentioned about governance, about the tokenomics. HARPREET mentioned about the tech stacks, and different use cases for DAO. So I think that those are some of the topics that we would go deeper today for you to understand what DAOs have to do with your business, how you're going to implement it, and how you're going to start with your DAO journey if you are fascinated with this concept. So I think my next question, since we are talking about use case, and we also have the proof how DAOs are enticing to the crypto enthusiasts here, can you guys give me one, let's say, exciting or scandalous use case of DAOs that you have bumped into? So anything would do in a good or bad way. And then we're going to go deeper into why you like it or why you're impressed by it so much.
Well, honestly, I do believe we are in extremely beginning stage. So it's really difficult to draw the whole picture of all potential use cases. Because as soon as DAOs and implementation of DAOs will be developed, we'll see more and more cases. I guess even right now, it's impossible to understand in what way, let's say, in what 100% way it can transform the current businesses. Because as soon as transformation is going, you'll see more and more cases of implementation. What I would really like to highlight, as you asked for one, let's say, case which is going to inspire me personally, it's about collaboration, let's say, in any artwork. I really want to highlight, let's say, GameFi DAO, Investing DAO. I do believe we saw a lot of examples, so it could be a bit boring. But if we take the real work and, let's say, artwork which requires a lot of efforts from different contributors, we can see how DAO can perform. Why? Because if it's built with right principles, with a good project management system, and it has enough full-time contributors and passionate community, it can utilize, let's say, social intelligence and provide really great results in a really short-term way. Of course, for some first inputs, it will not be easy. But as soon as it's ready for long-term performance, the result could be inspired. And moreover, right now we already see these cases. There are some existing DAOs which work in this field, and I guess they provided a great results and great proofs of this hypothesis.
So, I mean, going back to your question, like, so I see DAO more like nuclear energy in a way. You can have, like a positive, a lot of good ideas, like a lot of good innovations spurring out of it. But then in the bad hands, there's going to be a lot more, like nefarious, evil concepts, what they call forming out of it as well. It can be a double-edged sword sometimes. But when you look into DAO itself, if you talk about what are the concepts that I'm most excited about, I think I'm most excited about something like DAO cooperatives, and where you give some sort of decision mechanism to the participants of the group to vote for who's going to be the next leadership, right, in that particular company. Not just stakers and, like what we have today is just voting for stakers and certain investment portfolios or some sort of projects, for example. But what about the leadership itself? Who's going to be leading that particular organization, the groups and all of those? What about those type of proposals? So a cooperative model in DAO concept works really well, where you have like kind of a structure on how you should communicate, how should you vote, how the governance should work, and then how the financing should work, how the auditing should work. All those processes can be laid out, and you don't have to know who's the people behind. And a kind of a structure works really well. So I think when we were looking into more maturing DAOs, like today we have very minimal levels, but governance are still being figured out. Financing is still being figured out. But over time, I think once we are able to fix that, I think there's going to be a lot more kind of open DAOs where you actually can structure your company completely as a cooperative DAO. So I'm very excited for those kind of things, because if you look into the backstory of cooperatives businesses out there, a lot of emerging economies, especially like countries like India, Pakistan, Malaysia, Southeast Asia, has heavily reliant on this because it gave you easy access to capital, management, governance of it. And then there's like hundreds of thousands of cooperatives in this region, right? And they're structured that way. And so that's where I see that there's a lot of opportunity when we actually take the existing models, improve upon them with the new technology, and actually go with the flow. But the one that I think is going to be most scandalous, because today we are also, this can be a tool for the other side of the market as well. For if we talk about the black markets, we talk about like the underworld gangs, we talk about the uncontrollable, like unpermitted adult industry, for example. It can just go up and have a lot more crazy applications towards that direction, because now we have a structure for a bunch of people who want to do evil stuff to get together, work together, fund it together, and structure the organized crime, right? So it will have, as a technology, it is neutral. It doesn't really believe in any of it. But as a tool, it can also backfire, over there. So as a community, we have to understand the opportunities and also the possible negative side effects that might emerge from it. But I think today, everybody is learning, researching. We have to build tools where we can actually avoid things like that in the future. That's my perspective.
Okay, so I think we've got some interesting use cases in the house. So I think Alex mentioned about, artwork. Of course, it can be expanded to other real-world assets tokenization, where you can actually, of course, have this collective power resources of different people, for some sort of aligned interest, especially with artwork. So HARPREET also mentioned about cooperatives, which I think very fascinating and also very relevant to a lot of the existing mainstream businesses who are now looking into implementing blockchain and pretty much like also like having like a roadmap to implement that. So DAO, I think, is a good tool to start doing something like, you know, an internal initiative or an internal organization within the bigger organization, experimenting with this concept, and then you can just come up with more use cases further down the road. I personally am interested in the developers DAO. So I think a lot of the layer 1 blockchains right now, even Ethereum started as an open source community, and now Polygon and other chains are also following the suit. And what they are doing is that, of course, they are not just being able to harness this collective, I think, power of the whole community, but actually this is going to be very it's incentive-based, and people basically can contribute to the DAO from anywhere across the globe. And I think pretty much this is also a very interesting, I think, use case for DAOs these days. One thing that HARPREET also mentioned that I would like to dig deeper is about the, you know, how people would get together for malicious. Let's say if they get together for malicious kind of agenda. For example, if people share the same kind of interest in, I don't know, for trafficking or some sort of malicious activities, basically I don't think DAOs can actually prevent that or blockchain can prevent that. But is there any way that you think, I mean, who has the say to say that if a DAO is correct or not? I mean, is regulation necessary in this case, or what do you think? Or you should think that this is going to be like a free reign kind of area where DAOs is just going to be the tool, but you just have to leave people to make their own discretion on the agenda of the DAO. I know this is a tricky question, and that's my specialty, you know, always throwing tricky questions and unexpected ones to the panelists. So I do apologize for that, but I really want to get your opinion on this. Maybe HARPREET, you want to start first?
Okay. So, I mean, it's a weird question to ask. For example, like today, if you look into the industry, if it's still a baby, DAO might be an embryo. So because it's still very early, we're still figuring out tools, use cases, concepts. When you actually go and slap a regulation up this, it stopped to grow, right? Often, if you sit down with a room full of regulators, you will see that actually a lot of them are not technologists. They do not believe in the vision or the values or the concepts or ideas that we actually want to work on. They want to see how can they de-risk stuff, right? And when you start de-risking really early, you kill the industry, right? So I feel that regulation, it is important, but it's important to work in the pace with the growth of the industry. So in this case today, what we need is a minimal structure and recognition, but over time we might need some regulation of governance, moving forward, regulation of financing, but that is going to be like few years down the road. Don't look into putting all of those today onto a startup who's actually trying to build a DAO, you will kill it, right? So over-regulation is a problem. Under-regulation or not caring about it is also a super big problem. So how can we balance it? For me, my perspective is instead of us relying to get legitimacy or like a regulation from institutions and agencies that do not understand it, I rather have the DAO community itself, the ecosystem itself, who believes in the value, believes in the concept, have some sort of a DAO structure where we keep the ecosystem safe, right? Have a DAO of governance in the DAO ecosystem itself, right? Deciding which are the DAOs that, like going certain standards, believing in certain concepts, like fulfilling, like a level of securities and protection towards their members, and they're complying to those standards, right? But if, let's say, we want to go up and talk to a regulator today, hey, we would like you to regulate DAO, they don't understand it yet. They need those skills. They have to catch up with whatever you guys have already caught up in, in this industry right now, right? So that's the challenge here. And even today, one of the good things is that a lot of those criminal organizations or terrorist organizations are still very low tech, right? So we have an upper hand where in the industry, we are all techies, especially now in building stuff, but a lot of the criminal organizations and a lot of the really bad groups, for them to operate efficiently, they still have to be very low tech. So that is one of the reasons why, although there's a lot of criticism about Bitcoin or cryptocurrency use in terrorism financing, I've been in those discussions. The last when I was in Bangkok, I was actually in an anti-terrorism financing talk, right? We were actually arguing the same points. But when you look into the percentage of it, it's actually still very low because a lot of the organized crimes are not very tech savvy. And it will take time for them to actually even understand DAOs. But till then, we should build the governance, the protection, that ecosystem to keep them out of it. That's my thought. That's my point.
Yeah, I have a different question for Alex, unless you have further feedbacks to this. I think you also have background in both, like I think venture capital as well as I think media with Cointelegraph, as far as I know. So I mean, in your current position right now, I assume that some of the DAOs or some of these projects would come to you guys for fundraising or for participation, you know, as from you guys as well. So what would you look at in a DAO? What are you looking for at a DAO? Let's say if you want to participate or if you want to partner or support them.
Yeah, so firstly, I would like to just add a couple of my own points on your last question, just very briefly. I do believe the only actor in this play who can tells us is DAO correct or not is the market. It's the market and your community. Because we know a lot of examples when regulators fail. So if market accepts your approach, your DAOs, if you have a huge community, it means you are, let's say, probably in the right way. If not, it doesn't matter what kind of principles you're going to implement, what kind of policies you want to have. If you don't have community, if you don't have users, if you don't have your own mass adoption with your own DAO, it means you make something wrong. So back to your last question, what we are looking for on behalf of our investment fund. So, of course, we are bullish on DAO, but we are looking for this, let's say, pillar in our investment fund in more infrastructure way. Not DAOs itself, but instruments, tools, which help to create DAOs and to, first of all, make it more simple. Because the success and the future and the, let's say, secret sauce of your successful projects and products is about how easy you can use it. It's not about complicated things. So we observe this field on behalf of infrastructure level, and also we are really bullish on digital identity, because digital identity has a huge link with DAOs. I do believe when in the future successful DAOs will be impossible. It will be impossible to create them without really good adoption and implementation of digital identity. Because the core of the DAO, again, is not about the tech itself. It's not about economics. It's not about what kind of governance policies you decided to implement. It's all about users. And as soon as you have really strong tools to identify users and to create a really easy to onboard and really nice user journey and user stories in your DAOs, it will be the key how to raise and grow your project. So in this way, we are going to invest. We already have in our portfolio a number of projects in this area, and I do believe we'll invest more in this field.
Okay. Just a side note, anyone having any question in the room, feel free to raise your hand. We really want you to engage with us as well, you know, instead of saving all of the questions until the end. So just let me know if anyone wants to speak up or share about your ideas and what you want to, you know, discuss with the panelists today. So I think there are some questions. There are some interesting points on the toolings and the tech stacks of DAO. I think I have met so many use cases of different DAOs with different level of, I think anonymity, decentralization, or even the autonomous level that they can go, right? So the DAO actually, not all of the DAOs are full DAOs. Some are semi-DAOs, some of them accept like fully kind of KYC, some of them do decentralized KYC, Some of them will actually kind of, of course, have a council, of course, like to govern the whole system. Like with investment DAO, for example, I think there are pretty much a lot of these like different toolings that we can think about. But let's say in your opinion, I mean, let's say in terms of advice for the toolings for DAOs, what would be your own experiences in terms of building the DAO? Like, would it matter in terms of the toolings, or is it more about the user interface, or is it more about the user experience that you want to put in the front, or you want to build your product around? This is going to be a more kind of product-based question, right? So we have talked about use case and stuff, and now we're talking about how you're going to start from that into building your the DAO. So anyone want to share their experience? Maybe HARPREET?
Yeah.
You go ahead first.
I guess the worst way how you're going to build DAO is just to focus on your governance token and that's it. As soon as your DAO means governance tokens, it actually means you don't have DAO. You have something strange which probably works on a bull run market, because in a bull run market everything works. I do believe if we just going to divide this question in different areas, we'll find that all aspects are important. Regarding tokenomics, I do believe first of all, it's about utility. As soon as your token, your voting mechanism has a real utility, your community has a real power, and at the same time you provide a significant additional value with your token or your community, it will work. Because governance should be just a part of your whole idea regarding the DAO. Governance is not for governance itself. Governance is just a supporting mechanism which allows to make the decision-making process in your DAO more transparent. If we talk about user interface, again, in my opinion, it's the key for DAO's mass adoption to make it as simple as you can. Because users, they don't need complicated projects. That's why we observe in this cycle of the market a huge growth of real simple solutions. Because community which is ready to complicated things is really small. And definitely it's not about mass adoption. Okay, sometimes geeks are going to create projects for other geeks, but definitely it's not about the future of DAOs. In my opinion, a bright future is in simple things with real value.
Yeah, I mean, like geeks will be geeks for sure. But so coming back to this, I mean, like from what has been discussed earlier, I think it's very important on the experience, and DAO should be dumb-friendly, like stupid-friendly, literally, right? So the day you come up, because you have to understand, some values, some concepts, some principles are very dear to us, right? Something that we might believe in, or not everybody in this room might be agreeing to everybody, like exactly what is being discussed up here maybe as well. But it is important when you're building such structures, you're building such, tools, you have to actually bear in mind there's going to be people with varying viewpoints and ideas and concepts. So let's break it down in 2 points, right? So let's say the guys who want to set up a DAO and the guys who want to use a DAO. These are two different, like an audience group here and user group over here. Let's say we talk about those guys who actually want to build a DAO. How can we actually make it easier where I can come up and in less than 8 steps, I should be able to get my whole DAO structured, right? So in this case, if I go up there, I can set up, I want it to be leaderless, known participants, or like KYC participants, digital identity-based participants, or anonymous participants. I can decide all those things, like on this particular tool, how I would want the rules, the governance, the structure, the financing, and everything managed in 8 steps and launch a DAO, right? So this is for people who are actually planning to build their DAOs. But what about people going to be using it? It has to be way simpler. A lot of the most scalable solutions out there, if you look into Grab or like any of those fintech applications, whatever scale, was important tools, important projects, something that is really needed but done very simply, right? You can just pick up and suddenly it just pops up where you want to go. And then there's the first question you ask you, where are you going from, right? There's a second question they ask from, what kind of car you want? Often they don't even ask you anymore once they already know that you like to travel, maybe like in a 4-seater, right? So they simplified the whole process and the step of information they ask from you. So then you keep using it, it becomes convenient, and then you get used to it, it becomes habit, right? And it kind of continues to sell you more, services or products to make your life convenient. So now last time you can ride on it, now you can maybe on Grab, now maybe you can buy food from it, then maybe you can pay your bills with it. Over time, you let it manage things for you, all right? But when you look into a lot of tools that are built in the crypto space, it's a not user-centric kind of development. We've always been focusing value-centric kind of development, where it has to be anonymous, we have to really make it anonymous, it has to have really the high-level encryption, but we never see from the point of view of how can we actually make other people believe in these values, other people believe in these concepts. So we never build those tools, that applications, all those services that are required to onboard the masses. Because when you talk about building DAOs, we have to be inclusive. It's no longer about the geeks being geeks. It's about everybody out there, even the tuk-tuk driver out there, how can he be on a DAO? How can he invest into an ecosystem? How can he be onboarded? And how many steps is required for him to participate in a DAO governance, right? So I think that is a kind of a mindset, a viewpoint that a lot of Web3 entrepreneurs, founders, product developers have to have, that it's no longer about us. It's about getting the next billion in, and how can we actually go up there and actually make things simpler. And I think the day things like this will be successful, the day blockchain will be successful, the day Web3 will be successful, is where we don't pitch it anymore, right? The day we don't have to sell it anymore. Today, how many of you actually think about cloud and how it works? You just use it, right? It's convenient. You're already uploading your pictures onto iCloud, and you don't think about it because it's convenient, it's easy. I don't have to sell everybody on the street to buy a cloud service. You already know you need it if you don't have enough data on your phone. As simple as that, it is onboarding. But when you go out there, have to catch every single tuk-tuk driver out there and explain to him what DAO means, nobody's going to care about it, right? They're not going to onboard on it. So I think that's where today we are in a phase where we require a lot more R&D, a lot more development, a lot more investment in tooling, a lot more ideation, a lot more research in universities, maybe work out different governance structures, figure out, can we even have like automated, automated governance? If let's say you have AI and stuff in the future coming in, can we actually get sentiments and decide like how things might want to go on a smaller, not so important decisions, right? A lot of the things you can just spiral across and have a lot more tools and applications, services, ecosystems that can develop out of it. So DAO is not as simple as just getting here and just doing some investment DAOs today. Where we are today, there's a lot of opportunity of growth and a lot of new experiences and services to build above this that is possible in the future. So I think it's more about wait and watch. Yep.
So I think there are some important takeaways, of course, that basically with the DAO, I think regardless of the tech stacks, I think at the end of the day, it's going to drill down to the values and the product and the UI, UX, basically how you're going to deliver the values and the message about your product to the mass. And if we're talking about Web3, with, let's say, crypto native market, it's just a very small portion of the mass kind of crowd out there that you want to get on board with DAOs or Web3. So personally, of course, I think that DAO, it starts as a tool, but basically depending on how you're going to shape the values, how you're going to shape as I mentioned, so people have talked a lot about like constitution, governance, how you're going to be able to actually run the DAO later without any interference from humans. So I think basically that's some of the ways and some of the core values and the gist of how we should bear in mind when we develop or when we conceptualize this DAO. So I think that there are a lot of things to, of course, to discuss about the DAO. Our time is running short as well. So I think we're going to leave some time to get the questions from the floor before we have some concluding, let's say, messages from our panelists. So if any of you here in the room who wants to share about what you are doing, if you want to get some feedback or sharing from us, or if you want to have any question, feel free to raise your hand. Maybe this is the last chance to speak with us, like the panelists on the stage. So please don't be shy. So the gentleman over there.
Hi guys, found it really fascinating, thanks a lot. As someone that is involved in startups but has never really delved into DAOs, doesn't know much about it, but just generally sees potential for the concept for some things that I'm working on. Can you help me understand, like, if I want to build a DAO around an organization that I have, how can I understand what is the cost, the schedule, what are the prerequisites of knowledge I need to have, like, I mean, even just to arm myself for a conversation with you guys, maybe you can help me out. Like, it feels like a lot of work and it feels daunting for someone like me who's uninitiated. So any tips for someone like me? I'm sure there's other people in the audience who are drawing connections with some work that they're doing. Yeah, thanks.
May I ask, like, what kind of DAOs do you have in mind? Like, what kind of product or what kind of mandate you are looking for? 2,
maybe 3 ideas. And I've been running accelerators in Asia for the last 10 years, and I can see the potential for an accelerator DAO, which is like a decentralized way of having a low-cost accelerator, particularly for rural areas in Asia. And I have a company in the UK, which is a travel tech company, which is based around content and community-generated content. And I'm wondering if that's a way that we can organize content contributions from verified, I guess, members of this community. Both are longer stories, of course, but that's the brief version.
So when you talk about how to set up DAOs, right? So first of all, you have to understand first what are you building this DAO for? What is the value behind it? What is the concept behind it? Why a DAO is needed in whatever product or use cases you're building, right? So a lot of people tend to think about a product and say that, oh, maybe we just need a DAO to structure with it. It's usually what kind of value. For example, if you talk about health tech here, right? Let's say you're building an ecosystem, right? You're building an ecosystem of health records and data, or maybe a health ID, let's say, right? So in this case, you have to decide, like, what is important in here. Like, maybe can this DAO be completely anonymous? Does it require KYC? Or does it need to have known participants? Okay, let's say in this case, because it's health, it's something related where the healthcare needs to pull out your records, so most likely you need to be known participant, right? You might have to do some sort of KYC that, okay, this is the guy, right? So we can actually pull out their previous health records and services. But then, what are the other steps we need? Do everybody else need to know who's this person, right? That, let's say, James has diabetes. Do everybody has to know that? No, right? So in this case, how can we pass the information on a network without actually passing the information itself? That's where, like, zero knowledge proofs and concepts like that comes in. So that's why, okay, we need to have known participants, but we have sensitive data that we don't want to share with everybody, but we want to give confirmation that, hey, that this person has this disease and he might need some medical assistance, like let's say in the case of an emergency, that we need to know that the person have diabetes, right? So let's say tomorrow you're walking with your health identity outside and you met an accident. So now when the doctor knows the information, he'll be able to take, some sort of steps to ensure that you're a diabetic patient and how to treat you well, right? So in this case, you need to have some sort of a zero knowledge proof system. So another question has been tick marked. Then how will you actually deal with community, right? How will the community participate in this, like in this particular DAO? What kind of decisions this DAO should be taking, right? What level of decisions? Is it going to be financial decision? Is it going to be governance decision? Is it going to be data-related decision? Is it going to be product-related decisions? When you talk about financial DAOs, it's very straightforward, right? You put in some money into a fund, and now you actually can go up and decide how to invest and where to invest. People can put up proposals like, okay, this is the project, and which projects that you want to vote, who got the most votes, basically has been approved, right? So there's simple investment DAO mechanism. But when you talk about a health tech DAO or systems like that, what will be their mechanism? What will they be voting on? Or what will they be governing on, right? When you talk about DAO, it's decentralized. It's more about governance. It's more about, working together and taking decisions and managing some fun or activities together, right? Today, because a lot of the legitimacy and power only comes from finance, because a lot of the anonymous DAOs have to stick on finance, because that's the only reason to be there, to manage the money and to manage the money towards achieving the vision, right? But when it comes towards, traditionally you see companies, even you have institutions, associations, non-government organizations who doesn't have money, right? But their members get together and still govern things because of some vision or some idea or some cause, right? So you have NGOs that might be for green tech or might be for environment. They don't really have a lot of money to be managed. They don't really see the money flow. They might just see an audit end of the year, but generally they are there to actually govern on the decision of the NGO, right? So things like that do exist. It will eventually trickle down to DAOs as well. But when you look into that, you have to see that what are the fundamentals. When I'm structuring this particular DAO, what are the decisions and how will it be governed? How will it be approved? How will it be cancelled? And if that's, say, there's a conflict, how will it be managed, right? So a lot of those basic level, what they call questions that you ask when you're setting up a non-government organization or a structure where you involve multiple parties, that thinking process has to be there, right? Interesting, I wish there was a checklist, right? I think somebody in the ecosystem has to come up with a checklist that, okay, if you are a DAO, these are the things you have to do. But the best way will be a checklist with the tool itself. You complete this checklist, you have a DAO, right? That's what I'm hoping for somebody to create. I've seen like people like DAO House and a few of the other DAO tools, Adam, trying to do something very similar, where they already have, but they're very crypto-centric yet. But over time, they will trickle down to more tools and more services below it, where you can just maybe add on a plugin. I need voting, here you go. There's a plugin that you can add in. Or maybe I need chatting messages, or I need an anonymity. I need a ZK Snark plugin, right? That's going to be a tool that's going to be killer for DAOs, like in the next few years, because you can just plug in whatever service you want, and your DAO can actually utilize it. Just like Discords with a lot of plugins, right? Similar kind of concept. You can actually just do that. So a DAO, simple. Why is it for? Why you need it? How it's going to be governed? What it's going to be managing? How, what are the values and concepts? And then let's say if you leave the DAO, how will it continue, right? Always imagine when you build something, you want to think about what if you're not there, how will it continue, right? How will the vision continue, and how will the process continue flowing without you there? So that is important.
Well, it's really difficult to add to quite a solid point. So, in my opinion, the only question is why you need DAO. I do believe this is the only question what makes sense, because all other points are about let's say implementation, how to create, and all this stuff. The only key question is why you really need DAO. Why you're going to do it, because definitely it's not so simple. And what kind of issue it's going to solve, and what kind of value it's going to bring. Because a lot of projects, a lot of founders, at least right now, they're going to create something with name of DAO just because it's a hot hashtag. And we see this kind of behavior in a lot of markets and a lot of trends in Web3 as well. But as soon as you ask yourself why we need DAO, and you have a clear answer, not just the pros and cons, but the real answer, and you realize that in your economy, your business, your ideas will not work without this kind of community management or way how a company or business is set it up. If you have a clear answer on this question, you'll find all answers to all operational questions and topics for sure.
Okay, yeah, I do agree. It's very hard to match HARPREET's comment on this, because this guy normally charges by hour. So thank you for that. And if you want to revisit the list, please come to speak with him later. From my own experience, I think with DAO, it's also very important to take baby steps. I think definitely for newbies, there are two things to do about it, as I mentioned. So the number one is to have a kind of a roadmap and experiment with some of the internal DAOs first before you actually release it on full scale. Number two is that I think it's also important to look up and refer to a lot of the existing DAOs out there. Actually, even though DAOs are kind of still new to everyone here, but I was also very surprised to find out that the toolings and infrastructure for DAOs, and they are very diverse, especially with Ethereum ecosystem. So for now, if you go to Open Middle Dash orgs or Zepified like DAOs, you can have a list of all of the DAOs, what they are doing, the active users, how are they doing at the moment. You can definitely or easily pick out some of the similar DAOs that might be more or less in the same kind of domains that you are running. And with the toolings and stuff, of course, we have Collab Land. We have a lot of the tools out there with Gnosis, for example, Gnosis DAO resources. Those are some of the areas or the lists that you can go through and check out, for some ideas or for some inspiration for you to do your own DAO. I think we are running pretty late, so maybe if we have some time. Okay, anyway, we don't have time. But anyway, thank you so much for being here today. It's Friday, so hopefully you're going to have a great weekend after this. The panelists are going to be around here later if you want to, talk with them a little bit more after this. And I hope that everyone has got a little bit more inspired about the DAOs, and hopefully we can see more DAOs here in the room after this. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great day, everyone. ขอบคุณมากค่ะ